Okay, all, it is time to get kind of triggered again. It is standard tier list time. I know I did one around 2 months ago before the release of Festival Collection, so we might as well do it again. There's not that much that has been released. The biggest set that's gonna come out is gonna be set 6. But again, we got Festival Collection, we have Shaman King, big impacts on the format. We also had Record of Ragnarok, but we also had some innovations in terms of results coming out, so we can kind of swap it up a bit. Now, you might see here that, you know, the top ranked is called A+ instead of an S, because I know whenever I separate things, people get very triggered going, this should be higher than it is. So I'm just, again, going to emphasize that both A and A+, very, very close in terms of power level, right? I put it in A+ because it is slightly better, right? It is slightly better. If my brain was levels, right? It could be. That could be how my brain works. I would put this deck in another level, basically. But they are very close. But basically also, B up, people will take to tournaments. And they'll do okay with it, right? Again, the tier list from A to B, or A+ to B, very, very close, right? Only when you start going to the C's, deck's gonna be kind of average, right? So that is it. Now, again, I'm just going to emphasize no set 6 stuff. I will do some, I think I will rank Token Rambu and Record of Ragnarok, but apparently they're not in this template, so I'll just use like set 6 icons. I'll point them out when I do it. And I'm not going to list every single lyrical ride line, right? Because, you know, not all of them are good. just pointing it out there. Anyway, let's get started. So, in my A+ section, I'm still putting Gravidia, right? I feel like Gravidia is still a very, very strong deck. People still bring it. They still bring it en masse. It still does good, but still a lot of things are catching up to it, which is great, right? Which is great. People in terms of skill are getting better as well. So the deck, people have figured out, and it's just kind of not getting as many tops, but at the same time, it's still performing very well. So definite A+ for me. The other A+ deck I'm going to put here is Kairi, right? Because I think Kairi is just still like a slight step up from the other decks. But again, if you play anything else, you're still good to go. The one deck that has really dropped off is Magnolia, right? Now, Magnolia, I think, is just not as good anymore. I think it's actually a B tier deck. You'll still be able to take it to tournaments and do okay with it. But I think there's still a lot of decks that just perform very, very well and are just kind of better picks, right? Moving on, let's kind of talk about my favorite, Seraph Snow. I think Seraph Pure Light, great for all that. This is an A deck. It's an A deck. I think it's a solid pick still. It's a great deck. One deck that has really risen up has been Thegria, right? Thegria, we just see it. We see it. This is, again, one of those weird differences between the East and the West. Japan, we barely saw Thegria much, right? Thegria popped up once or twice at locals. At the big leagues, though, no one really bought it. In the West, everyone who's relevant is bringing it. It's been getting lots of tops. It's been performing well in BCS as well. There is something about this deck that good players are gravitating towards, and maybe they figured something out that others really haven't, or we just haven't gotten PRs for the other ride lines that kind of just make this deck much more attractive, right? Other ways too. But yeah, I think this is a solid A tier deck. It's just getting better and better. Well, basically, it's the results that have been really carrying it, and it's really, really shown. A new deck that's really popped up is Shaman King. This has been relevant for a very long time. I think it's actually an A tier deck. It's still relevant. It's recently come out. One of the best collab sets to have been released. If you want to get a collab set, if you like Shaman King, this is definitely a great pick. Only the Yo deck is very, very relevant. I really want to test this a lot more. I'm gonna be honest here and say I haven't tested too much. But it's definitely on my list of things to test. So I think, yeah, Yo, if you want to build it for a competitive play, and I think a lot of the players, at least playing in the Japanese scene, will also say the same thing, that this is a very, very scary deck to fight. Now, another deck that has kind of dropped off as well is Bastion. I will not take Bastion. I think, like, people will still continue to take Bastion, because it's just a very simple deck. It does very, very well. It can do very, very well just by high-rolling your opponent. I don't like the high roll. That's just me, right? I don't like the high roll. Putting it B, right? B for Bastion, but it still can just like absolutely crush games. But not as strong, not as super high roll as it was before of like the dark strange. You have to commit a bit more of like the boost order. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you don't get the super high columns. That's kind of fine. You don't always need a high column to kill people with Bastion. But again, that is something to consider. So I think it's just going into the B section. And also, Nirvana. So Nirvana, a lot of people would put in A. I will put it in A+. Well, people would usually put it up here. I will put it in the highest of the A's. I think it's a very solid deck. I just very dislike it when, you know, it bricks, right? You have some ways to brick. You don't trigger multi-attack, etc., etc. Other ways is that if the opponent knows, like, the breakpoints or how to play against this deck, it can become very, very tough for you. So that's why I'm putting in A. But otherwise, you know, it's still a very solid deck. We've seen people do very well with it. You know, teammate Steven absolutely slayed with this deck. Nearly coming in first, but unfortunately it's not. But yeah, it's a great deck. Great choice. It's still performing well in Japan as well, so give it a look. One deck that I thought would perform better was PBO. This, unfortunately, did not really work out. Of course, it is missing a PR, but it's not such a significant PR that it means it's like absolute garbage, right? Unfortunately, yeah, this deck really hasn't topped as much as I thought it would. And, I mean, we've given it to good players as well to play it, and it's just like, yeah, it's a good deck. It doesn't really care about what your opponent does. It'll just do its thing, but unfortunately, it just hasn't really performed, you know? Again, there's a lot of other great decks out there. I have to keep on stressing this. So it's basically in a pool of other good decks. So that's why I'm putting it into the B, right? And then other decks, let's kind of take a look at. So this is going to piss a lot of people off. I'm still going to put Zorga and Flagberg on the same tier, right? A lot of people have says, you just don't know how to play Flagberg. Go, a good Flagberg player will always, like, will just destroy you. And yeah, sure, that's correct. A good Flagberg player will destroy you. Even a bad Flagberg player can destroy you. The problem with this deck is that it still needs pieces. I'm just going to throw it. It needs pieces. When it high rolls, it will just kill anyone. If it low rolls, and it does low roll, right, and if you don't continuously draw Persona Blast, Persona Ride as well, to make your column super threatening, this deck it's just bad. It's just really sad, right? So I would not take this to a tournament personally, right? It's a totally different story in Japan, of course. You get the extra multi-attacker, and the extra multi-attacker just makes everything super, super solid and easy and just very, very threatening. An extra attack is absolutely insane in this deck. If this deck had the PR, right, this would be an A+ tier deck. I'm not gonna lie. But because it doesn't, it still has those clunkiness issues. You're still super relying on your Sentence Assault and your Inlet Pulse, right? And you need that combo. And sure, you can run orders and things to make the life better, but it doesn't have it. It just doesn't have that third card that will just make everything, like, super nice, right? So that's why it is staying in B. Zorga is still in B as well. I think it's a solid deck. I always think it's a solid deck. We've seen some more results with this as well. Either Grave Zorga or Blue Zorga, I think is still like fine, right? It's still fine. But I think these two, again, are still in the same tier, right? Until Flagberg gets its Shelling Dragon thingamajig. They're basically brothers of the of Stoicheia. Actually, all the Stoicheia clans are like all here, except one. Yeah, except one. Another thing that is lacking in the PR is Overlord. Overlord, the end. This is kind of like a C tier deck. I think it's cool. It's not too insane. If this got its PR, I think it's like an A tier deck. Right? Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe it's a B. But when I look at the things that are in B, I always just see the Overlord as like just kind of a step lower than that. So that's kind of in the C tier, unfortunately. Tamiyura though, Tamiyura probably the highest of all the Bs. You know, again, I think like everything in B, right, is either just very more high rolly or more piece reliant than the other decks, and that's what kind of everything here is, right? And then Tamiyura is kind of one of them. You know, if it gets its pieces, it just kind of steamrolls and just wins. If it doesn't, then you just have a bad time, right? That's kind of it. So B tiers for me, probably one of the higher B tiers. Barrow Magnus, an A tier, I think. Again, this also is not in any particular order, by the way. So yeah, this is an A tier. Bav Sagra, I will put in B tier too, right? I look at the A tier decks and I see Bav Sagra. Bav Sagra is still very strong, don't get me wrong, but it just, when I look at everything in A tier, I would take them over Bav Sagra, right? Bav Sagra, very scary, very, very aggressive deck, but you know, after that, you know, it's gotten some good Festival Collection support as well, but after that, it's just like, still not as high as the other ones, unfortunately. And then Hex Orb, I think, is a C. Getting some, waiting for some set 6 support and some PR support, unfortunately. That's how it is. Greedon, I'm actually, with Greedon, I'm hesitant to put in C or B. Because it's gotten more and more support, right? And sure, it's like it won one of the BROs. But, you know, just winning BRO doesn't always make you automatically a top tier deck, right? The thing is, Greedon is still missing, like, a bit of stuff to push it up. With set 6, I feel like this is definitely a B tier deck. Maybe like even up. Maybe I'm giving it too much credit. But this is somewhere sitting around C and B at the moment for me, right? C and B. Because right now, I'm still thinking, would I take Greedon to a tournament that matters? And the answer is still no. So if that's the case, then it wouldn't be in B, right? So that's where it is. Probably the highest of the season. It's gotten a lot of support and it's just getting better and better. So yeah. Bruce is a definite A for me. I think even though kind of like Bruce used to be top dog and it feels like it's fallen off, you can't forget that it has like some really good cards still. It still is very, very threatening. Is one of those few decks that can really catch up because its like final turns are so strong, right? Your opponent's at 0 damage. One turn you can push them all the way up to like 5 and the next turn just kill them, right? So there's always that huge kind of comeback factor for Bruce because, you know, early game it gets kind of pummeled, but later it just comes back and just kind of wins the game from that. That's why I'm putting in A, and it's just overall a very solid deck. Ava, still in C, right? You know, missing cards. MLB, you know, it's kind of like a bad Phantom Blaster deck, so because you can put in Phantom Blaster in it and just, yeah, you could just straight up play Phantom Blaster. Yeah, this is kind of just a C, right? With Ava, sorry. I think, did I say Ava's in B? It's in C. It's in C. Orphist, kind of the same thing, right? We're actually missing like. Set 6 makes Orphis, I think, maybe an A tier deck. It's very, very aggressive. But again, we're also missing the PR. Not all decks run the PR, but I think as the lists have been more standardized, it is coming back, like, with just everyone running it. So, I think, should this be, like, here? I don't know. I think I'll put it in C for now. Because the things that are going to go into D... Let's throw some stuff into D, right? So Chaos into D, it's not great, it's missing a lot, yeah. So naturally, you know, Orphis should be in C, because it's definitely not Chaos tier. Roroa as well, like, this is funny, because Roroa is one of the few archetypes or ride lines that can run Inla Pulse, but that doesn't save the deck from being a solid badness, right? And then I think Eugene is either in D or C. It's really gotten like 0 love, even though Dragon Empire's gotten quite a lot of stuff. It feels like it's missing something that the other decks have gotten. And yeah, Prage for set 7, right? And then I think, are we missing anything from here? I think that's about it. We can kind of just quickly... I think, okay, some of the lyrical stuff, let's put Lornarol. I think Lornarol's a B tier deck. It'll get some wins, but nothing really... too crazy good. The rest of the kind of lyrical stuff, I think, is just pretty average, right? Again, still not very good. I would just put Willista in D just to annoy one viewer, right? One viewer. But let's kind of talk about Token Rambu and Record of Ragnarok. So this let's pick a Record of Ragnarok. So this is Record of Ragnarok, right? Youthberg is Record of Ragnarok. I think Record of Ragnarok is probably like a B tier deck. This is more speculation, again, because I don't really, in terms of collab sets, right, wasn't really into Record, unfortunately. I saw it played once in BRO, it seemed okay. Maybe it's like low B, like mid C. I think I'll put it in C. But like, here's the issue. I need to put Token Rambu somewhere. And is Token Rambu actually gonna be in D? It's old, but there's at least like there's one build that is like kind of okayish, right? So I don't know. Either I have to move all of them up by 1 or lower them by 1. I think it's a hard choice. I think it really just comes down to, would I take them to a tournament? And the answer is no, right? The answer is a huge solid no. And I would definitely prefer to take Record of Ragnarok over Token Rambu. So I think that's pretty much the list, right? So let's kind of just quickly go through it. A+ tiers, these are decks, you know, slightly better than the A's, because that's a plus. Gravidia and Kyrie, I think they're just very solid and true decks that just performing very well. Nirvana, for A's, right, these are decks that I'd definitely also consider taking, is just Nirvana, Thegria, Seraph, Shaman King, which is Yo, Baron Magnus, and then Bruce. And then in terms of like the B tiers, these are the ones which I kind of like would take. You know, I'd kind of consider if I'm like want to have some fun, right, and don't want to play like the super meta stuff, don't want to be a sweat. But Tamura, I think, is a definite top. And then we have things like probably if I wanted to order them, I'd put Magnolia lower. I would definitely play a lot of these over Magnolia. I would also play a lot of these over Bastion. I'll probably play Lorinol over them, to be honest. But yeah, then we have like PBO, Flagberg. I think this is a personal choice. I'd play Bavsagra over Flagberg and Zorga. But to be fair, like, we're getting into super bias, because I'd actually play Zorga over Flagberg. Yeah, I think this is kind of a good beeline, right? So Tamura, Overlord, Flagberg, Zorga, Bavsagra, Lorinol, Bastion, and Magnolia. And then the rest are decks that I really would not want to bother taking to a tournament. And it's funny, again, I want to say, once these decks get like their set 6 support and PR support, I think like Overlord moves up to A, Greedon moves up to at least B, Ava to A, right? I think Hexaorb moves up to like a B, and then Orphist moves up to like to maybe an A. Yeah? So that's actually really insane. That's really insane. So release those PRs. I think we're getting some of them, right? Because if we look at the shop tournament stuff that's coming out, or what the next wave, basically, I think we're getting there. We're getting this. So it should be quite interesting very soon. But this is basically the list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a lot of complaints where Flagberg is, because the Flagberg cult, I think there's more Flagberg cultists than Zorga cultists. Let me know. I think maybe they all switched. Maybe they'll switch. I'm not sure, right? If you're a Flagberg cultist, put in the comments. Put in the comments so I can identify you, all right? But that's it from me. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video, all right? Bye!